Hi everybody, my name's Matthewman from Dan Roberts Elite. Just a quick one this evening on something again that I get asked fairly frequently by clients, and it's regarding nutrient timing when it comes to training. So what should we be having ideally pre-workout, during a workout, and also when we're finished and we're just at home and we've relaxed, rested and recovering. So first off, it's really important that you take heed of how often you are eating and refueling your body, because it's different for every single one of us. So again, dependent upon how many times we're training, how hard we train when we do train, and just generally what our day-to-day diets are like, are all really important when it comes to really trying to schedule your training and your meals around your training that little bit more. So first off, this is basically information for people who are wanting to up the amount of muscle, but they're also wanting to reduce the amount of fat. So quite often it's a lot of gents who are wanting to just get that little bit more size, but not through really bulking. They just rather would strip the body fat stores in order to achieve a little bit more definition. So pre-workout, you're wanting to have this meal sort of 1 to 2 hours before your training. The closer you get to your training time, you need to be thinking about what's going to be taking longer to digest in the system. So I'd advise for a pre-workout meal a lean meat. So that could be your chicken or your fish, but with the skin off. Reason being just because the skin is where a lot of the fat's held, and the more fat you have in your system, it takes longer to digest. So keep your meat really lean, and keep your veggies, you want in them to, the classed as low residue veg. It basically just means that they have a lower fibre content, which you might think is not so great, because obviously fibre is fantastic for working through the body, but just specifically for training, anything which is going to sit in your tummy for longer than it needs to is going to interfere with the whole of your training sort of ethic. It's going to make you feel bloated. It might help to just really think about what you're putting into your pre-workout meal, and you'll notice a difference in your training. So pre-workout, 1 to 2 hours before training, lean meat and low-ish fibre veg. During your training, this is quite a controversial subject, because you'll see some people at the gym during training that might have a protein shake, or they'll have a protein bar. Some would argue that kind of the protein throughout your training will help, because obviously it's going to be keeping your muscles fired and it's going to be fueling them. I'm of the opinion that I wouldn't agree with that. I think the only thing which is really necessary during training is to up the amount of your amino acids. Okay, so your branch amino acids. Reason being that basically they help to increase the anabolic effect of your training, but they also lower the cortisol response, so the stress response from your training. And you can get this in, best form is powder form, and dependent upon your size, normally around a 5 gram measure just mixed with water would be sufficient, and just take this in regularly throughout your training session. Then comes the most sort of important, but also the most discussed and argumentative element of your training. So it comes into your post-workout window. So you'll find normally, if you've trained hard enough, that when you finish your training session, you don't actually feel like eating. And more often than not, this is because you've actually triggered your sympathetic nervous system, and so it's busy on controlling, sort of resynthesizing, as opposed to letting the brain know that you're actually hungry enough to need a refeed. However, it is really important that you're feeding and refueling your muscles within around about a 45-minute to 60-minute window. And here, this is where, again, you'd go back to a similar sort of meal as your pre-workout meal. So the only difference here is you'd need to up your ratios. So you'd have a 2-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to protein. Again, try to keep the fibre content moderate as opposed to really high. And this is again, your protein needs to be lean for the same kind of reasoning, that you're in a really, really good metabolic window, so you're wanting your body to be burning as much fat as possible. So don't give it extra fats at that time. You want like a fast releasing medium to high sugar carbohydrate which has got a high glycemic index, and that alongside your lean protein will help to just let the body recover, and make sure that you up your intake of fluids as well once you've trained, just to avoid dehydration. If you were to take a protein shake here, this is the ideal time to do it, is after your training. You want in like a whey isolate protein shake, which has a really high and fast absorption rate, so it's straight into the system, which is what we need in order to aid recovery as best as we can. And yeah, I mean the post workout window is a really complex sort of topic. I will do another blog on it which just will look specifically just at that section of your workout, just to give you a few more tips and a little bit more reasoning behind why we take into our bodies what we do, and why it's so important to do that just after training, kind of how the chemical differences in the body take control. But yeah, for now I'm hoping that just helps with a little bit more of an insight into how you can fuel your body before, during and after a workout, so that you're getting the most out of your training, and you're not kind of either going into a training session or leaving a training session thinking, I could have done more, or I could have pushed myself harder had I realised what I was doing to my body before, during and after. If you do have any questions or anything I can help you with, do let me know. I'm on email at dawn@danrobertselite.com, and same goes for if you've got a particular topic or particular something which you've got questions or you're curious about, let me know and I can get a blog up on here to help with any of your training questions. But other than that, yeah, take care and I will speak to you soon.